Welcome to another Lunch with Philip and Greg. Our guests today are Mads Larsen Nielsen and Ryan Velin. Welcome, guys.
Thank you.
Can you explain who you are and what you do?
Yeah.
Well, we're basically...
Who are you, Mads?
Well, we have this thing that we share. We have a lot of things we share. Actually, we are both editors, and we love to work in Final Cut 10, but actually in the post-production area of things.
I guess we just love technology.
Yeah, yeah.
Everything new and shiny.
I can relate to that.
Yeah. Right. For me, at least, it used to be cameras and new stuff coming out, but during these past now many years, it has just evolved to also software and what goes on inside the computer as well.
And setting up servers and
just mangling around with stuff.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. And we work as a team at Metronome Productions in Denmark, here in Copenhagen, not very far from where we're sitting now. And we are actually we are in charge of we actually have an official Final Cut Pro 10 department. So Metronome Productions is divided in two. So there's an Avid section and there's a Final Cut 10 division. Right. And we take care of the Final Cut 10 division, and we have, as we speak, 50 client computers all running Final Cut Pro 10.
Yeah. There we go.
Yeah. So scattered all over Metronome, both on. We have a big building, third floor and a first floor, and
the garage.
And a garage. Yeah.
We just saw the very glamorous garage. It's exactly what you'd think.
But we love to play around with how to do things a new way, how to experiment with network and servers and workflows in general. I mean, how can we move that bit maybe to another place in the chain? So maybe optimizing the preparation of an edit, move that to pre-cutters, so it'll be more once the editor starts working, he can immediately see in the timeline what's the skeleton, what's the mainframe, what is the actual story he's gonna tell, so he won't have this 3-hour-long thing where he's like, okay, what am I gonna do with this?
Because you're doing a lot of reality television, and so that's a lot of footage.
And light entertainment shows and just we do a lot of large-scale television shows. I think actually we do 8 or 10 a year, something like that.
Yeah. So we work with lots and lots of clips.
Yes.
All the time. So never less than 1,000, I guess, for any show. Always more, and it's not unusual to have 10,000 clips.
Wow.
Yeah.
And 25, maybe 50 projects in a library.
Yes.
Oh.
Hour long.
That's a lot of storage and a lot of backups.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And that's, I guess, well, so when I started out in television, everything was tape-based. Yes. So we were recording on in those days it was Betacam SP, I think they were called.
Oh, you young people. You young people, I don't know.
I even saw the move from SP to, I think they were called SX, which was the Sony digital tape format.
We were talking about Terry Curran earlier. Just ask him about SX. It's his most hated format ever. Too much pre-filtering and too much throwing away data before it went to the tape, so they could claim 5-to-1 reduction. But you know, if you throw away a whole bunch of data first and then only compress the rest 5-to-1, it sounds better on the spec sheet than it really is.
But when I started working in television, so everything was on tape, and we have seen this change that, well, everyone has, I guess, that when people they were recording or doing shows, they simply weren't recording that much material. So because you were just physically limited to how many tapes can you carry around here. So if we were to do a shoot in Copenhagen somewhere, I would maybe bring, I don't know, 5 tapes, maybe 3, maybe just 1. So I was limited to the amount of tapes I would bring along, and thus naturally minimizing the amount of clips coming into the NLE, which there weren't because we were recording from tape to tape. So, but then they started loading into NLE, so there weren't so many clips. But now they have SD cards or whatever cards they carry around, and they can just have a bunch of those anywhere. So
SanDisk have just released a 1 terabyte SD card. So how many clips can you put on that?
And they do. So the photographers, they do. So they record and record and they record. And one funny thing I have noticed is that they almost never turn off the camera. They just keep it running. So space isn't an issue, and I'm aware that it shouldn't be. But when you work in post-production, it is, because you need to have all this storage, and even though storage is relatively cheap, it's not free, at least not yet. So there is a limit to how much you should record.
And even more importantly, it's not just the amount of storage and how much do we have room for, or it's when you sit and you, as an editor, you need to tell this story. It's relatively you need to deliver this 1 minute scene or something like that. I mean, if you have hours and hours of all kinds of
junk
and possibilities, and you can do that and you can do that, and I mean,
another series called Footpaths of Copenhagen.
Yes. Because you get. Why are you filming the pavement?
So we are constantly pushing for, you know, even though they shoot all those, I mean, loads of footage that before we as editors even see it, we want as many choices as possible beforehand.
And I mean, it's not unreasonable to ask that from the producer or the journalist who's actually doing the piece. I mean, you're the one who's set out on this story. You know what in which how the event unfolded. I mean, what happened when you got there, what happened when you left, I mean, and what happened in between. It's your story, you know, you did the interview, you should do the pre-cut. You should do the and it's not to confuse, because we see that people, they often confuse the pre-cut with the editing. No, the editing is what we do as editors. I mean, that's my skill. So I do this pre-cut, which looks terrible and horrible, and you could never broadcast this. But the story is there.
Yeah.
I do the job as an editor, so I add music. I search for, you know, that look for the B-roll on the B-roll.
You make it come alive.
Yeah.
Basically, I mean,
I've actually had, you know, people's, when I asked them, I told them how I would like the pre-cut, and they said, well, what are you gonna do? What do you think I'm going to do? I'm going to make this shine and look good and have the broadcaster, you know, clap their hands.
Make that. tear. I mean, because it's not in there to begin with.
I'm gonna polish that turd.
Yeah.
And it's not that we're not dissing their job or anything.
Right.
They can't do that. It's not what they get paid for, but they get paid for.
And we can't do their job as well, because we don't know what they had planned.
Yes.
And I mean, before they went out and shot the thing, they assuming. We assume they have,
They have a plan. We're not sure always.
Hopefully they do in most cases. So
You never know.
they go out to shoot this story, and that's the story that we should be editing. But as an editor, I don't know that story. So you find that story in those amounts of footage that you had shot, and you bring that to me, and I'll make that turd look great.
And that's, we've talked. That's what we're trying to do with Lumberjack, is make it easy to get to that point where the editor can start doing the work that an editor does.
But unfortunately, I think a lot of the times they don't have a plan. And I get that many things you can't plan for.
Yes.
But then again, many things you can. I mean, this is not all of it, but a lot of reality television is like they do what we ask them to do. I mean, they would never go there. They would never go visit that city, or they would never go into Tivoli Gardens and try out the shooting range.
In certain
That's
directions.
yes, we tell them to do that in order to have some television. So we know what they're going to do. And then, of course, I know that things could unfold within that scene. But hopefully they plan their stories before they go out and shoot. I'm sure they do. I don't want to diss anyone, so I'm sure they do. But
at least they know what they shot.
Yes.
And I mean, so when they return to base, we want them to sit and figure out what the story is.
Okay.
But make it tight, make it.
And maybe making them do that should make them better the next time they go out.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. Because they know, why did I shoot all this? Why did I spend an hour here? Because I'm not going to use it.
Yeah.
And who wants these shots of the pavement?
Yes. Exactly.
And on most shows, we've actually succeeded with, trying to push for this.
Yes.
It's not.
But I guess it's the way everyone works. I would like to think so. That if you go out and do a story, you come back, you do some pre-editing, and then you hand it off to an editor. I would hope that is the way that everyone works. If it's not, it should be, because you can really optimize your post-production workflow that way.
I've always argued that cameramen or camera folk should always, at least for a while, cut their own material so they know what they're giving people.
And without doubt, the editors who have been, or the other way around, the cameramen who have been editors previously are by far much better than the ones that have never touched an NLE.
Because they've got the empathy for the material that they're going to be handing off to somebody else.
Yeah. And they know, okay, I'm going to stay on this shot until he leaves the frame. So, and now I'm going to reframe my picture, not in the middle of when he's leaving the frame. They know that because they just,
They have the instinct.
They have the instinct, and they're already doing their cut in their head.
Exactly. When occasionally we do a cooking show called the Semi-Serious Foodies, and because I've got a little bit of experience editing, I'm always making sure the shots that I get are the shot that I will need next, and that if this is going to cut with this, and I'm going to have plenty of ways of cutting this down. So it makes the edit so much easier when you know how it's going to have to go together.
Yes.
Because you're the guy doing it.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, I think that the way things are becoming more and more is this is not to say that we don't respect what people are working with. It's just a simple fact that if you only do this one thing, and it could be editing or camera work, then you don't necessarily have an understanding of what is going on in other aspects of either post-production or production. And I know that's really important because personally I've been a radio host. I've made radio for many years. I've done TV. I have
Everything but grading.
Everything but color grading.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a reason for that.
And there's a reason for that.
You're colorblind.
I am.
We both are.
I am. I am.
Both are,
And so is Mads.
Yeah.
No. Red and green.
But that doesn't mean we haven't colored.
No.
No, because we've graded lots of things.
Oh yeah. And gotten away with it as well.
Oh, yeah.
So how
There's not. You can do so much with technology nowadays. Yeah.
So how did you get started?
I have always been fascinated with media. So I have pictures of me when I was 2 years old, sitting with headphones and listening to radio shows, you know, radio theater, you call it that, with sound effects and imagining things. Oh, yeah. That has always been fascinating to me. So when I was 12 years old, that is many years ago, the radio scene in Denmark changed from only being what we call DR, which is Denmark's radio, which is the big national broadcasting. So that was the only radio station allowed, so no one else could broadcast in Denmark. So they opened up for that, so they got an opportunity to open all these local radio stations. So I was 12, and this is really grassroots. So can I do a radio show? Sure. Here's a record player. Here's a tape recorder. You do whatever you want, and we'll broadcast it. Oh. Yeah. So I did. Yeah. And I've been in radio from 12, and I mean it's 12 years old till I was, I don't know, 20 something. Okay. And then I started moving into audio, radio commercials, more professionally. Started getting paid as well, you know, and then I moved from there to doing TV. So I did TV shows where I was hosting and I was doing the shooting and everything, you know, amateurish level, which was great. Yeah. Because you learn so much that way. So you don't have all this fancy equipment or anything. If back in the old days, if I needed an echo on a sound effect, I would have to make it myself. You know, I didn't have a machine for it, but I found out that if I turned up the fader with the tape recorder on it, you know, I would get the feedback. Oh, now it starts echoing. So I would have to learn all that, like with the cutting. You know, I have to manually cut the tape in the tape. And it has taught me so much with pace and rhythm, and you know, so that was way before waveforms or anything. So
do you think that's a really good foundation to have that tactile connection with the media that people coming into it now are missing out on?
It is. It has helped me tremendously, and because I can refer to things that these other people who are coming in now, they don't even get. We even keep talking about putting things to tape. I mean, there's no tape anywhere. That's right. It's everything file based. But most of all, I think it has taught me that the media is very, as you say, tactile, and especially now with Final Cut Pro 10, it's kind of the same way. It's very, you can touch it. You can take this media and you almost touch it. You almost touch it and you put it here, and you can touch it and put it here, and you can move it around like this, kind of like we did in the old days. I guess Apple would only need like a Taptic engine in the mouse, you know, so you get and a drag on the mouse, so you could feel you dragging it. And
it's almost like Minority Report.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah. Yeah.
And that's actually how when we talk to pre-cutters and journalists about how easy it is to approach editing, basic editing We always refer to it like Lego bricks and you know, because that's what it is. And if you want to move that piece over there, then just grab it and move it. It shouldn't be any more difficult, and it isn't in Fine Cartel at least. So that's
Mads, how did you get started?
I got started. I didn't have any of the radio experience. I began as a projectionist in theaters. So I actually had from mid-teenage years, from when I was 15 or something like that, I began showing films at the local cinema, and I actually there was a small town cinema, and then I moved to the European Film College, which is this 8-month long course, and together with a friend we headed the all the underground cinema, and actually lots of American underground films as well, short films and military educational films and so like that. So that was fantastic, and then I moved to Copenhagen, and I had this period of 3 or 4 years where I moved from cinema to cinema, and had half a year there, and then I began more like out of necessity. I ended up working for a small art house which didn't have anyone to order the films. So I suddenly found myself going to film festivals and see stuff that would be shown in cinemas a year from now, or so that was the whole film distribution aspect of it, and I loved that. And I mean, I think I saw, over the course of a year, maybe 400 or 500 films. I mean,
you've seen every movie in the world.
In that period.
Now, Rovi tracked 7 million.
I literally saw everything that was coming up, all the good stuff, all the crap stuff, everything. So I knew which ones to pick, of course. That was the whole point of it. And then I ended up at a local cinema in Copenhagen called Empire. That was maybe now the most cozy and successful.
It's a very small place, isn't it?
They have 5 screens, I think. But that was the last place I worked with before I began working as an editor. So I had the opportunity to go to the Danish Film Institute, and they had and still have this special place called the Film Workshop, where you'd.
At least it's dead.
Yeah. It's this workshop that's government financed, where anyone can come in and say, I want to make a film.
Right. Wow.
They only need to find their own crew, and then and they're basically off. I mean, the equipment, the post-production, everything's been paid for.
What a great idea! Wow.
So the Film Workshop, they do about 70 or 80 productions a year. and I was there as an editor and as an assistant editor for 2 years. Mm-hmm. So while I was editing 3 films at the same time, I think I was all over the place, helping other productions out as an assistant editor, but also as a network fixer. And that was where I got my first experience with networks and servers and what is possible. And that was all Avid, Avid on Mac. And then I got my first real paid well job, I think. And I mean, everything I've done has been like 3 years and 4 years and 3 years there. So I was then at a couple of 2 or 3 year stints at that production company and that production company, and I did. I don't know if you're gonna use this, but I did. I worked for a production company where we had this one big customer, which was a king in the Middle East, and they had ordered 100 films.
Nice customer.
Nice customer. It began as a DVD to be recut, and it ended up being 100 films. Wow. And we ended up behind the scenes doing twice or as many. This was over a 4-year period, and it was a constant shoot and editing process. Wow. And we had teams in the Middle East constantly filming, and so I ended up being the main editor on all these films, and these films were shot and thought of and edited so that they could be projected inside a giant stadium.
Oh, okay.
Stadium.
Okay. Wow.
And I believe they're actually being projected as we speak.
Oh, sure.
In a loop. Mm-hmm. And it's a very surreal story. I could talk about this for hours. You know, every detail is even more crazy than the previous.
I actually did a stint as a projectionist as well, and I clearly remember showing a double bill of Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory and Puffin stuff. But it was a carbon arc. The old projectors used two pieces of carbon and struck an arc between them, and normally there would be a motor that slowly drove those arcs, those carbon rods together, because they burnt away. And then one of the motors died midway through the morning. We still had 3 shows to do that day. And so, you know, my assistant and I would slowly hand tweak it, not realizing that carbon arc light is actually terribly rich in ultraviolet. And so the next morning I had this patch burn, effectively sunburn on my arm.
So they didn't use light bulbs?
No.
I guess as you did?
Yeah, you would be they replaced them a couple of years later with, so yeah, that would be about the time you were born, but anyway.
How old do you think I am?
I'm looking from my perspective. I'd have said probably mid-30s.
Oh, really? Mid-30s? There you go.
Charming.
I used to see myself as a film buff, but I see, you know, speaking to you guys, I'm nowhere near film buff as you, especially as you. I know we talk about this a lot. I mean, you have seen all movies in the world, I think, and I used to collect. I started out with laser discs back in the days, which were great, at least compared to VHS.
I have a friend who's got a big collection of laser discs.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Now?
Yes, still? Right now, yes, still, yeah. Oh, yes, he's got like 15 years of films backed up, ready to see.
And Laserdisc players are highly coveted. So if anyone comes up on Craigslist to sell, you've got to grab them because they're really good for parts because they don't make them anymore. So if you've got a Laserdisc collection...
I sold mine for almost nothing.
Yeah, well,
10 years ago. Yeah, but no one wanted it.
No, I mean, there's so few people, but those people who want them are prepared to pay quite a lot for them.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I moved to DVD, obviously. So started buying up movies, but I had 200 movies, 300 movies maybe. But I realized I only see them once, maybe rarely twice. So why would I want to store them?
Yeah.
So everything just changed for me, at least. You know, why would I want to buy a movie now when I have Netflix and HBO and what have you? But people actually still buy movies, like they buy music, and I don't get why. I just don't.
This is sounding like how has the industry changed since you were one of your questions.
Yeah. So what is the biggest change do you think you're seeing?
Well, that is obviously the digitalization of everything, I guess, because we talked about this the other day actually, because you know, Mads and I, whenever we talk, we used to we have a tendency to we start off one place and we end up I don't know where, and I don't know how, but we keep on talking for hours and hours. So we started talking about this codec, and then we're talking about hard drives and bit rates and what have you, and throughput and Ethernet, and so we talked about what we are what we are witness to now is at least to us kind of like witnessing the industrialization of the steam engine.
Yes, yes, it's a revolution.
It is. It is.
And I think we're only at the beginning of it.
We are, and we don't even realize it. But when you look back, though, you can see, well, that is what has taken place. We had a discussion, I think that's a year ago, maybe. I remember there was a new iPhone out, and we talked about it had. I think it got some great reviews. It was probably the iPhone 6 or 6S, I can't remember. And we kind of we started talking about it, and I remember you said that it was kind of like the first iPhone. You know, people really saw it, and people really, you know, got it and saw what a big thing it was. And I said, no, they didn't. No, it wasn't a success. Not instantly, at least. You know, a lot of people didn't see it. It didn't even have an app store or anything.
No.
People talked about it like, what are we ever gonna use this thing for?
I didn't buy one until version 4 because I had no need for what it could do. But now I use the phone all the time. Not for phone calls.
I had to go on Google, you know, and find reviews from back then to see. They didn't go on about, oh, how great this thing ever was. That didn't come until later.
Because there was no app store. The original thing was, well, if you want to make an application, then you do it in Safari. So if you think about the way that you use your iPhone right now, take off everything that's a third-party app and tell me how much time you'd be spending on your phone. For me, I'm mostly doing third-party things. You know, I'm looking at Yelp, or I'm looking at who's knocking on our front door because we've got a...
Who walks up our path? Seriously, a ring doorbell, and it has a video camera, and it gives a message on the phone as soon as somebody walks up to the door or walks down our path.
There you go. It's
all of these things, or depositing a check because I can take a photograph of a check instead of having to go to the bank. Thank you. That's very nice.
Finding the instructions to get from where we're staying to get to where Metronome is. You know, and Yelp is local knowledge on restaurants. You know, you go to a new place. Normally you would be completely lost as to what's good, what's not.
So that's not what the promise of the first iPhone was, but it's what iPhone has become, which is incredible, absolutely incredible.
And that's just one thing. So and then as we talked about in our own industry, so you have this move from analog to digital. What I have seen though, and what we have noticed, is that with people who have been working analog and been working 20 years ago and 30 years ago, before all of these things took place, they are still not only referring to things in an analog way, but they are also working kind of analog-ish. And it's
I think it's still in the mindset.
Yes.
I mean, it's an analog mindset.
sometimes it's hard to describe. But when we're on the same level, I mean, we can just, it's an analog way of thinking.
Okay.
And when we talk to people, some people about this, you know, sometimes like, it's just because you first movers, you know, and everything is just fast and digital, and no, but it's just, it makes absolutely no sense to think in this way in a digital world, and you need to understand that. So now that I am teaching you how to use this the best way possible, that's not saying that it's not, I'm not putting you down or anything. I'm just teaching you that it is actually better to search for things in the Finder using the tags than it is inside a folder, which is in a folder, which is then in another folder.
Because that is an analog way of thinking. It's taking the desktop metaphor back to the literal desktop metaphor, and you have to know which filing cabinet and which folder in the filing cabinet something might be in. Whereas there, you know, in the analog world, there's no way of saying, I just want to show me everything that's in every filing cabinet drawer that matches this tag.
Yes.
And actually, we just experienced this on a show where we are having up to 6 or 8 people, all accessing the libraries, hundreds of libraries, and they have this folder system where they now this library, this story has reached this state, so we are moving it from that folder to this other folder, and we're also making duplicate of it, and
by accident, you know.
Actually,
So he thinks that he's drawing this folder from here to there, but he didn't notice the little plus, you know. So he's actually making a duplicate.
Oh gosh.
and no one can find these libraries, and they're searching through all the folders and subfolders, and I mean, making up new folders as they go along.
Frustrating watching people work that way, isn't it?
And then we were talking about, okay, let's do a complete overhaul of this. Let's introduce the tagging. So we're doing that now, and hopefully that'll help things out.
Oh, I'm sure it will. It's just that when you introduce new things to people, they're usually reluctant. I mean, well, I'm kind of used to, you know, I have this filing cabinet and I know where the drawer is, and but now I'm showing you how to do this. But I think we have our experiences that when we try to talk to people, you know, in a nice tone and manner, you know, not calling them names or anything. Are you stupid? Can't you see? You know, sometimes that's what we want to do.
Yes, that's my biggest achievement, is not doing that.
So hard
so
some
we don't.
days. Yes.
So, and then we just show them. So now can't you see that it's much faster? Oh yeah, now I get it. Now I get it.
And by that we're also avoiding small things like if you have this library open and I'm just gonna, you know, on the other client I'm gonna move your library to another folder, then you're basically fucked. But you won't notice that
Until it's too late.
it's too late. But instead, if even though the library is open, I can select the library and I can tag it, and you won't notice, but now it's been tagged with custom created tags like I don't know, edit.
I've always had a mindset that is towards the future. I mean, it's something new comes up, and I'm more inclined to adopt something new simply because it's new and exciting. And it took me a long time to trace where that probably came from. And I found a lot of things that have influenced me very subtly through my life have been through the science fiction reading I did when I was young. And I finally worked out that this particular trait comes from a book called The Black Cloud. I forget the author's name off the top of my head, but essentially, a cloud starts to occlude the sky and eventually goes off the earth, and it's like everyone's going to die, and they make communication with it, and it's an intelligent cloud. And the scientist that's at the center of the story makes communication with this intelligence, and it offers to download information into the brain of the person chosen. And it turns out that this huge dump of information that was so much of which conflicted with what he already knew to be true, that ultimately he ended up with a brain fever and died. And the assumption was that...
You couldn't handle it.
They couldn't handle it because it was just too much of what I knew is no longer true. It conflicts, it's giving me brain fever. Whereas the janitor, who was another featured character in the whole story, who was a somewhat simpler mind, would have been a much better vessel, because he wouldn't have had the conflict, because he didn't know as many things to be true.
So that's how I think about certain editors.
Certain editors.
Uncertain in the leads. Yeah. But Mads, you're a sci-fi buff as well, aren't you?
Yeah, but I've never heard about that.
I was just about to say, well, you probably know who wrote that book.
Yeah. No. I should have.
Another one, actually. I don't know if you remember that when we first started, we were doing a DV companion for the original Final Cut Pro. That was our first breakthrough product after the Media 100 book, and it was just-in-time knowledge. And I realised again there was another Isaac Asimov story, where most people would be taped with the knowledge they need for the job that they're going to be done. So overnight you suddenly learn how to speak, and then 10 years later you get tested and say you're going to be an editor, or you're going to be a cameraman, or you're going to be a secretary, you're going to be a train driver, and you get all the knowledge immediately. Our protagonist is sidelined out of that stream, thinks he's terribly stupid and has all sorts of angst about that. But it turns out in the long term that in fact they're the people who have to learn the old-fashioned way, because they're the people who will do the thinking for the next generation and change things. And I realised that we can't tape everybody, but if we can provide the knowledge as you need to know it, which is the theory, then that would be the next best thing we can do right now. So these are subtle ways that science fiction stories that one's read in a long time earlier have influenced the way I've been thinking over the years.
And I wouldn't know those references because I don't read science fiction. My take on science fiction is Star Wars. I mean, and that's hardly science fiction. It's
Star Wars or Star Trek? I mean, these are not compatible.
No, that's what I mean. So
Star Wars has nothing to do with science fiction.
No, that's what I mean. That's what I mean. So
it's fantasy.
Yeah.
Right.
So I figure I've at least 30 years ahead of me, and I look back 30 years. Well, 30 years is pre-internet by a fairly good margin, and the rate of change is accelerating. So how much more change is going to happen before I finish my career? Right. And I mean, and you guys are a few years behind, and so before you finish your career, you got any thoughts about what might be the biggest change coming forward?
The future.
The future. It is out there. Behold.
Well, we're talking about that all the time.
Yeah.
And and in particular because we are in the middle of where it's happening. Right. I mean, it's the discontinuation of Flow TV.
Yes.
And the new world of streaming, which is already upon us and is such a great part of our lives.
Yeah.
I mean.
Yes, and one of the things I think that we will actually see in a reachable future, and we have talked about this as well, is how we store things. So we have this idea that since storage, it gets cheaper and cheaper on the consumer level, but I think maybe in 10 years from now, a production house like ours, we don't even have to be concerned about storage anymore. I mean, things are just uploaded to somewhere, and we can call it the cloud or whatever, but transfer speeds are now so fast that there's virtually no difference between sitting on a connected network and pulling data from some offsite.
Did you see what the internet speeds within NASA are? They're something like 400 gigabits per second, or quite fast enough.
So that's us in 10 years.
Yeah. So it's not, and that's a funny thought as well. So it's not because that you can't achieve those speeds today. It's simply a question of practicality. What can you afford those? Can you afford those? And do we have to dig up the whole city and change the whole infrastructure because we need other cables, or how do we use the existing cables, and is the technology gonna surpass, or catch up with the existing technology? I think that's exciting.
And that's not just in our business. I mean, it's going to affect everybody's lives. I mean,
just like now, I guess, like when you have your iPhone synced to your iCloud, that's the way it works. So you can actually I can record you here now with my iPhone, and behind the scenes, I guess, the files would just load to the iCloud, and I could sit at my computer at home, which is now connected to the same iCloud, open iMovie and do the same thing there, or continue the edit there.
So the future is more cloud, faster internet, more connected.
I'm sure. I'm sure.
Well, I mean, just on this trip, I'm working between my phone, an old iPad because my modern iPad died, and an old MacBook Air, and mail and Facebook and everything synchronizes across those devices without even thinking about it. The book that I might be reading on the phone is synchronized to the same book in the iPad.
Almost all the time.
Almost all the time, and the latest Mac OS, there's cloud syncing between documents and shared documents in Pages and Numbers. Unfortunately, they're document-based apps, and they're not like Final Cut Pro 10, which Final Cut Pro 10 is not a document-based app. So there's no real inference to be drawn there as to the future of Final Cut Pro 10, sadly. But I have no idea what the future is. I mean, and that's one of the most interesting questions, and the variety of answers we get across lunch, because 3D printing will become a thing for sure. Self-driving cars will become a thing.
It will.
Faster and faster than we think.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. But have you ever wondered how, let's call them regular folks, see these things? Because we're very technology minded, and frankly, when I talk to my wife about these things, she couldn't care less, which I guess is all right. Yeah. But she uses some of the things, but she's not interested in,
Sure.
Does the cloud become faster, or can I store more things to the cloud? Oh, I don't care. I don't even think about it. Where we think about these things all the time.
Until it starts to replace jobs.
Yes.
And
she's a nurse, so she would have to be replaced by a robot, maybe.
Well, but in aged care, there is already aged care robots in Japan. Exactly. That are, and they're going to become necessary because the number of older people in our society is going to increase relative to the population to support them. So, but I think personal care, nursing, I think, is a relatively safe profession.
Yeah, you'll always need the human touch. Yeah. That's what we say now. Yeah. Just when people said you will always need, I don't know,
a lamplighter to light the gas lamps in the street.
Yeah. You will always need the driver of a car. Yeah. No, not anymore. You can just call your car from your app. And
the big argument in artificial intelligence circles is between artificial intelligence that will replace humans and intelligent assistants which will augment humans. Yes. Now, I'm falling down on the augmenting the human side, please, because I don't feel like being replaced. But at this point, there's no real knowing. I mean, if artificial intelligence does actually become self-aware and self-programming, well, the moment they reach human equivalent, by 2 o'clock that afternoon, they're so far advanced, and by the next day, we're just cockroaches and inconvenience. Yes. So I'm hoping, I think I'm hoping that doesn't exist. Yeah. Me too. Well, with that in mind, what sort of advice do you think you would give somebody starting out now?
Never be afraid of anything new.
Yeah.
Be curious.
Very good advice. Yes, be curious.
Be open-minded and also be ready to take what you know and just throw it away.
Yeah, that's like my black cloud example a little while ago. Yeah.
Maybe before you just throw it away, see if taking what you know applies to anything new, and then throw the rest away.
It does, because when I was very early on, I adopted an Amiga computer for doing graphics when that was all hot and you know, really advanced. And of course, it became passe. You don't need to manage memory to get an animation done, and you know, you would do it this way because as you ran out of memory, you were using smaller and smaller bits of it. Well, come the web 10 years later, and the same principles were needed to keep things small for the web, which of course has now gone away again.
Except come video compression, and the same thing happened. If we were, because there used to be a skill in being able to be somebody who understood the codecs and could do really good video compression, because
and balance all of the size, quality, things that are necessary to get a decent quality. Well, now bandwidths have increased to the point where you know, it doesn't really matter. I mean, Apple's default compressions out of Final Cut 10 and any other Apple device are always way more than they needed, but it will always guarantee a good quality result, no matter what.
And with that, it's so it looks pretty, and that's fine.
And another advice would simply be just do it. It sounds like a Nike ad, but I mean, if you have the in your DNA that you have to be creative and create something, I mean, you have all the opportunities in the world now to do it, because you can do these small cameras. You can, in your iPhone, you have this 4K camera, which is amazing, and it literally is amazing. Can you imagine mentioning that 10 years ago, that you would have a 4K camera in your pocket?
When I was 12, I started asking my parents for a videotape recorder, and they had absolutely no idea what on earth I was talking about. And you know, it was 20 years before I got one. But
so if 12-year-old Ryan lived today, 12-year-old Ryan wouldn't be doing a radio show. He'd be having cameras.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I think I would. Yeah, I would. My daughter has a YouTube channel. She's 13 now. She has a YouTube channel. Yeah, and I don't know how, but she has 1,025 subscribers, I think.
she has more subscribers than I do.
And I don't know how. You can't ask me, but and she never uploads anything. How does that work? I don't know.
But people make entire careers based on their YouTube channel when they're 12 and 13.
They do. She met one. She was at a concert the other night in Tivoli Gardens, and she was approached by a girl who's, I know you're from YouTube. And she had seen her, she subscribed to her channel, and she wanted her autograph. Can you believe that? She's 13. She only knows her from YouTube. I think that's awesome. So that's, I really, people, they older people at least, they usually freak out when I say this, but I encourage my kids to use all the devices, not all the time, of course. They have to interact with people, but they have to learn what they can do with these things, because it'll make their lives easier in some ways, and they can create, so they can end up being creative. And if they end up anywhere near where I am, I mean, they will have an awesome life, because I love my profession. I love what I'm doing, and that's what I want for my kids as well.
I think that's a perfect place to wrap up lunch. Thank you very much, Mads and Ryan.